It was just past midnight when Mark slid into the driver's seat of his aging sedan, bone-tired after a brutal 12-hour shift at the factory. The world outside was wrapped in a thick blanket of darkness, the streetlights of the city long behind him. Tonight, he was taking a route he'd heard mentioned only in hushed tones, a narrow, isolated highway winding through dense woods, promising a shortcut home. Mark didn't believe in the ghost stories that surrounded this highway. Tales of people vanishing without a trace, strange lights flickering in the tree line, and distant screams carried by the wind. To him, they were just stories, folklore to scare kids. He was focused on one thing: getting home and finally resting. The highway stretched ahead like a ribbon of black glass, framed on both sides by towering trees whose branches reached out like skeletal fingers. As Mark pressed the accelerator, the only sounds were the steady hum of the engine and the faint rustling of leaves stirred by a gentle night breeze. The sky was cloaked by thick clouds, blocking out the moon and stars. The darkness pressed down, heavy and suffocating. Mark's headlights cut a narrow path through the gloom, illuminating small patches of the cracked pavement and the underbrush at the roadside. Suddenly, the radio, a comforting companion during his drive, began to falter. The music faded, replaced by sharp bursts of static and faint whispers barely audible beneath the hiss. Mark twisted the volume knob, desperate to clear the signal, but the interference only grew louder. Then, through the crackling static, a voice emerged, soft and eerie, repeating a chilling warning. "Turn back, turn back!" A cold shiver ran down Mark's spine, and for a moment, he considered pulling over. But he was so close to home. He told himself it was a prank or a radio malfunction and pressed on. Moments later, a sudden movement in the corner of his eye made him slam on the brakes. At the edge of the road, standing perfectly still, was a tall, shadowy figure. No details could be made out, just a silhouette that seemed to absorb the scant light. Mark's breath caught in his throat. The figure's presence felt unnatural, like a dark stain on the fabric of the night. He rolled down his window and called out hesitantly, "Hey, are you okay?" There was no answer. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. No footprints marked the gravel, no sign that anyone had ever stood there. His pulse pounding, Mark forced himself to keep driving. But soon, the world around him began to twist and distort. The road no longer seemed familiar. His GPS, once a reliable guide, began to malfunction, its voice garbled, its directions looping endlessly. It kept recalculating routes, leading him in circles through stretches of road that looked the same, as if the highway was trapping him. Road signs faded into rusted husks, their lettering illegible. The trees grew denser, their branches clawing at the sky like grasping hands. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Mark's headlights began to flicker violently, casting erratic, dancing shadows. The familiar landscape warped into something alien and menacing. Then, out of the darkness, the figure appeared again, this time directly in front of the car. It was pale, almost translucent, eyes glowing faintly with an unnatural light. Mark's hands tightened on the steering wheel as the car skidded, unable to stop in time. He slammed the brakes, heart hammering in his chest. Frantically, he tried to reverse, but the road behind him had been swallowed by an impenetrable wall of thick fog. Trapped. He pulled out his phone, hoping to call for help. But the screen remained stubbornly dark. No signal. Panic crept in like icy fingers. The whispers on the radio twisted into anguished screams, filling the car with a deafening roar. Mark covered his ears, but the noise seemed to burrow into his mind. Summoning every ounce of courage, he stepped on the gas and plunged forward into the fog. The figure glided alongside the car, silent and relentless, as the forest around him seemed to close in. Trees bent toward the car, their twisted branches scraping at the windows. The night air grew colder, thick with an unseen menace. Mark's vision blurred. Every nerve screamed to stop, to turn back, but there was no turning back. After what felt like an eternity, the fog began to thin. The oppressive darkness lifted to reveal bright, welcoming lights, the bustling highway where he had started his journey. Cars sped by, their headlights cutting through the night. People talked and laughed, oblivious to the nightmare Mark had just escaped. Tears streamed down Mark's face as relief flooded him. He vowed never to take that road again. Some roads are shortcuts. Some are traps. And some lead you to places where the boundary between the living and the dead thins. Mark learned that night that the road you trust might be the one that traps you forever. Thank you for listening. If you've ever felt the cold brush of fear on a lonely road, share your experience below. Stay safe, and remember, some journeys are better left untraveled.